Let's talk money.
I don't have your money.
I know I'd be a lot happier with some extra cash.
Is this about money?
Obviously, this is all about money.
Oh, man, we got bills to pay, buddy.
With practical tips and a focus on scripture, let's talk money. With Dave and Reb. From More Than Enough. Real conversations about money for real people. Let's talk money.
Are you ready to talk money, Reb?
I'm ready to talk money.
Well, Happy New Year again.
Happy New
I know
Year
it's
again.
not the first of the new year, but Happy New Year
Happy
again.
New Year to
I'm
you.
still in kind of the New Year mode.
Well, it is. It's January.
Yes,
it's all New
yes.
Year.
So, you mean I get to say Happy New Year?
You can say it every show in January if you want to.
Okay. Well, then I might. I'm not making any guarantees. Who knows what tomorrow will bring, as we often say. So, today's show, welcome. Happy New Year. Love to have you with us. We've got some really special guests this morning. Really special because they're part of our team.
Yes,
so we'll get to that. But this morning, before we jump in, a little housekeeping. We had some awesome shows at the end of last year.
We did.
And I'm just going to be bold and say if you miss those shows, you have to go back and watch them or listen to them. Of course, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, all of your podcasting platforms. And of course, we're on morethanenough.ca and chri.ca as those websites have players right there. You can just click it and play. And of course, today's show is sponsored by notmine.ca, who is also a wonderful partner with us, and they're hosting our podcast as well. So lots of places to talk money with Dave and Reb.
Right. And if you don't know about notmine.ca, they're part of Financial Discipleship Canada. Mm-hmm. And this month we're going to have Ray from Financial Discipleship Canada.
Spoiler alert.
I know. Tell us about actually what notmine.ca is all about. Anyway. Awesome. But today we're talking taxes, and we have Bron from our office, our tax specialists, as we call them, and Destiny. Welcome here this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. We're going to talk about the basics of how to get prepared for taxes this year, because as we know from the call-ins to our office, there are a lot of folks that have trouble just facing their tax conundrums or issues, and then it piles up for years. And some of them, maybe you're one of those listeners who just can't deal with your taxes, and we want to talk to you about that. And a lot of people actually still don't know More Than Enough has a small tax department, and we can help you with your taxes. So we're going to talk about that this morning. But before we do that, we're going to read a verse that we read a few times in 2022, and it's Dave keeps quoting it to me, so maybe I need to pay attention to this.
Before you read that verse, I'm like, I just had this thought that, is there any verses in Scripture that specifically address taxes besides the obvious one where Jesus says, "Hey, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's," and of course that's not the verse you're gonna read.
No, of course not. I'll
have to look into that.
I know we've talked about those tax verses before, and they can go back and listen to them.
It's such an important piece.
Okay. Proverbs 27 verse 12. I'm going to read it in the NIV, and then I'm going to read it in the Message, because the Message says it really in a great way. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Now, that's an interesting word, because CRA often makes us pay the penalty when we're late on our taxes, but that's another story. The Message says it like this: a prudent person, if you don't know what prudent means, it means wise, sees trouble coming and ducks. A simpleton walks in blindly and is clobbered. And I guess I have the visual of someone walking down the street, and you see someone with a bat, and you know they're going to swing, so you duck to avoid getting hit. But
a wise person does.
A wise person does that. But someone who's not paying attention just walks in blindly and gets nailed with a bat. But anyway, we don't want anyone in our listening audience today to get clobbered.
No.
So in terms of the tax season, we've asked Bron and Destiny to talk to us about the basics of what do we need to know and what do we need to do, you guys, in regards to the 2021 I guess we call it the 2021
It'd be
tax.
2022. That was
2020,
last
yeah,
year.
right.
Yes.
2022 tax season.
I'm laughing because Destiny and I had that conversation yesterday, and I did the exact same thing. And she's like, Dave, last year was 2022. So, Destiny, way to go. Yeah.
So you guys just take over. You guys can lobby or rally back and forth with some of the ideas, what's needed.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, certainly I'll jump in here. And I want to say that I love that scripture. I've read the Passion Translation, and it says that the wise discerns and prepares, and that the simpleton or the naive doesn't look ahead and suffers the consequences. So listening to this show and calling into our office at More Than Enough, speaking to one of our tax specialists is a part of being prepared and is a part of discerning. And a few things, a lot of things remaining the same from 2021 carrying over to 2022, which is a good thing. But there are a few changes and adjustments that people do need to be aware of. One particular most recent thing is those low income renters. You do have that amazing one-time top-up housing benefit of $500 if you qualify. And for persons who have children under the age of 12 and you do not have dental benefit or private insurance, then you can certainly benefit as well. And there's some qualification parameters regarding that. But if you call us, we'll be happy to walk you through that. You have still benefits like the Canadian Workers Benefit, the DTC, which is the Disability Tax Credit, the Climate Action Incentive. If you had to work from home as a result of COVID for at least 4 consecutive weeks, you still get to claim $500 for working from home. If you were self-employed at any particular time, then you get to claim those expenses as well as a self-employed person. So there are a lot of great benefits and credits that are available to persons, and we will be happy to go through them in detail. I encourage persons, as you're waiting for your T-slips to come in, just begin preparing any type of receipts that you know you have. While you're waiting for your charitable donation receipts as well, make sure that you're putting together your receipt documents. We have an amazing spreadsheet that we've created in-house that can help persons if you worked from home. If you've worked self-employed, that will help you to consolidate so that you won't feel overwhelmed or what do I need to report? What do I not need to report? That sheet will be an amazing template guideline that can help you to just consolidate and give to us the summary totals that's necessary so that we can make sure that you're reporting what is required by CRA.
Wow, that was a lot of great information all at once.
Okay, so but the one that I'm really interested in because it happened to come up was I don't know if it's a tax credit or a kickback for staycations. If you've stayed anywhere in Ontario, you get to claim back some of that. Is that still in effect?
That is still in effect. In 2022, if you decided, we can't go anywhere out of province, we're going to go ahead and stay at a hotel, whether it was one night or an entire weekend or an entire week. Once you kept your receipt, if you didn't for whatever reason, call that hotel, call that Airbnb, get them to give you a receipt. Up to $2,000, you can claim that amount. And it's a great incentive that the province is offering to persons in Ontario.
And do you know if that's going to be in 2023? Because obviously we can't time travel and go back and take a vacation in 2022. But does it look like that's going to be in 2023 as well?
Right now, I can't say for sure if it's carried forward, but I can say that we've not heard that it's been cancelled. So let's keep fingers crossed that they will carry into 2023. I don't want to speak for the government. They haven't cancelled it, but they haven't said it's carried forward either.
Okay, there you go.
I don't know if we claimed our trip from COVID. I
haven't done our taxes yet, so
no. Like from 2 years ago when we stayed at the Bronze's place.
I don't know.
Camp. I don't know. We have to look into that. Anyway, okay, Bron, what do you have to say? Anything you want to add to that question?
That was a very good, information there. I think the biggest thing that I would encourage people, especially because it's one of these times, taxes, the words just sometimes lock people up and they And if they haven't, for some reason, done 2021, or they haven't done 2020, or there's there's fear component, I would encourage them to simply take the initiative to call our office, speak to somebody, and to allow that, us to walk with them to get this done. Because all the credits and everything that Destiny was just speaking about, the key component there is that you need to be compliant. You need to file the tax return in order to be eligible for all of those different credits that she's talking about. And so that's the one piece that sometimes people get stuck on, is the fact that they're behind, and now they don't know what to do next. So sometimes it's just that fear factor. And certainly when we reference the Bible, and that it's do not be afraid, is certainly a piece that we need to be able to tell people, because the word CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, really they're just regular people. They have a job to do. They're doing their thing. So let's be proactive and try to get you in the right place that God really wants you to be, as opposed to simply being overwhelmed with this next thing, because there's lots of things going on, and so we can help you plan out a process to be able to do that. And believe it or not, I know April 30th sounds like it's a long ways away, but the reality is that it comes up very quickly, and you start getting data and information and everything. So it's important to sort of just be able to talk about it, I think.
Yeah, I think, and way to go, Bron, in bringing that up. I mean, and sometimes it's not fear. Sometimes it's just, it's that next thing to do. And then, as you said, you think, I've got lots of time, April 30th. And then all of a sudden it's, where did April 30th go? And I'm now in July. And then you're like, well, I don't want to file it. And then you're a year behind, and so forth and so forth. So, again, we all have certainly been in that space where, I got lots of time, let's do it tomorrow. And I'm thinking of the verse that also speaks to, hey, just get done today what you need to do today. And if you're feeling like, this is something I need to address, then make the phone call. That's a good start. And then start collecting some of those documentation that you're going to need as they come in, and watching for them. Get an envelope, stick whatever comes in now in January, your charitable receipts, your T-slips, your whatever you're collecting there, stick it in the envelope, and then, you can go, okay, the end of January, I'm going to set myself a date to sit down and organize it all, and then get it filed, right?
I have a question for you guys, because it's just on my mind, and maybe someone else is thinking that. What happens if we're late? Like, what happens when we go past April 30th? What, like, do they come knocking on our door with sirens? Or, like, I mean, maybe we think in our heads they might do that, but I don't know if one of you can speak to, like, what happens, and maybe we can demystify that, even if someone who's listening is backed up on their taxes. Maybe we can help take some of that fear away. What would happen, and what do they need to do?
If you're late, one of the main things, first speaking to us who honoring God, you're not honoring God because you're not being faithful in the stewardship. That's first off. But there's grace there. God gives us grace, so we have to give ourselves grace as well. And there's an abundance of reasons and circumstances that come about, unforeseen things that we don't plan for, that cause us to be late, and our priorities shift. So I will, like Bron said, I strongly encourage anyone who, they may not have filed 2021 yet. They may not have even filed 2019. Give yourself the grace. It helps to make that first step, just to reach out to someone like the More Than Enough Tax Department, and just have that conversation. And we can extend to you the grace as well, but help you to also become aware of the ramifications and the realities of the government's requirements for that compliance that is not yet met. but there's room for negotiation meaning we can, on your behalf, just journey with you with that process and have those communications with CRA, because like Dave said, these are people who are also handling their jobs. So they shouldn't be intimidating and they shouldn't be feared, but communication is one of the biggest things. So what happens if you are not compliant? You run the risk of really incurring penalties and fees that are really not necessary, but we want you to give yourself grace, not see it as a big fearful thing, and reach out to us. We want to encourage and walk with you through that whole process of becoming compliant and communicating with CRA.
So, okay, go ahead, Bron.
I just want to add one thing, Rebecca, and that is that the piece that the CRA, yes, there's the compliance piece, and then there's the administrative piece after that. So they are going to simply say if there's a penalty applicable because it's on the taxes due if you owe money, then they're going to assess those things. But as Destiny was saying, life happens. Everybody's journey and circumstance is different. And so there's a separate process from actually filing the tax return to what they call fairness. And so there's a whole different department at Canada Revenue Agency where it's a separate process after you've complied. There's a separate piece that talks about fairness, and depending on what's happening in your world, we then get to file a separate argument, if you will, to say that this is what was happening in the person's life. Here's some evidence of that happening, and we would then argue for a reduction of the penalty or a forgiveness of the interest or penalties. And so there's these processes that they have built in that are all part of the system that tries to get to this fairness component.
Right.
Wow. I'm actually thinking of the verse we started with, and actually the phrase in the New International Version that says the simple keep going and pay the penalty. But then I'm thinking about the grace that Destiny was already referring to. And even in Christ, when we think of, as Christians, we're thinking of our relationship with God. We're thinking of stewarding our resources, and the grace that we are extended in all of these places. Like, we are hearing all kinds of stories in this season of hard things, death, sickness. The economy is just in this uncertain space, and we all know what's happening out there. But I think of the grace that God extends when we come to him, and and even if you're feeling like, oh man, I have not got it together with my taxes, just call on the Lord, pray, talk to him about it, confess those pieces that you feel like you've fallen short in, and there's so much grace for it. And then call us or call someone you trust that knows how do you navigate that. Like, Bron, I did not know about the Fairness Department. I don't know if that's what they're called.
We're going to call them that today, the Fairness Department. So
because that is a great space, because you don't know, like, Dave just told me a story of a friend at Christmas who got some bottles of wine for Christmas. The bag broke, and she ended up in the hospital with a broken foot. Like, who can determine these things? Like, you don't plan for these, and there's so much grace for it. So I just, a place like More Than Enough is a great place to have these conversations, to find out how to go about
So I have another question, and again, it kind of piggybacks off that myth part. So let's say I'm behind a couple of years. From just a time perspective, I'm overwhelmed. A whole bunch of things are going on. How much time will it take me to, a phone call might be 5 minutes, but then how much time are we talking about to get compliant, to get things caught up if I'm, say, 2 years behind?
Yeah, if you're about 2 years behind, we really can give you a concrete or fixed timeline for that. It's based on the case-by-case scenario of which your particular filing includes. You can have foreign investments. You can have disposal of properties and things of that nature. So depending on all of the components that must be factored for those 2 years that are not yet brought up to date, it can be anywhere from 1 week up to about 4 weeks.
Oh, I guess let me rephrase that, Destiny. I'm thinking, how much time will it take me to collect my part, right? To do my part, right? In the sense that I'm overwhelmed. So, like, is this, as we walk through the process, is it like, oh, I'm going to spend 6 hours with you, Destiny, to get things all that I need? Or is this like a 2-hour deal?
Okay, better clarity. Again, there's no fixed term, because if you're coming from a place of feeling overwhelmed already, but you know that it's something that you need to get done, we start, again, the main thing is having that grace conversation and just celebrating you for making that first step of reaching out to us. We will find out exactly what is included in those 2 years. If it's a scenario, for example, where, hey, you just had a T4 slip, nothing else, then there are circumstances, once we're given authorization, we can just reach out to CRA ourselves on your behalf with that authorization and access the information that we need, because your employer would have submitted it to CRA. So we can take a lot of the weight and responsibility off you, and then we're in constant communication with you on a daily basis, whether you have questions, concerns, keeping you in the loop of the communication that we're having, so that everybody's on the same page, and we just go ahead and begin the processing from there.
So when, let's say someone out there has lost their T4, like, I'm just thinking, oh, maybe some people are restrained because they feel like they've lost documentation. There is a way to find it and get it, correct? I know this is a simple conversation, but just, I'm thinking people need to know this. You can retrieve that information if you've lost it.
Absolutely. I had a scenario where a client for previous years, but it was within 10 years. So I gave the option of either reaching out to the former employer or, well, in addition to, again, once we have legal access as an authorized representative, then we can communicate with CRA and we can gain access, because CRA would have anything that the employer would have submitted on behalf of the employee for the years that they would have worked.
Okay.
I think one of the big things is, as David mentioned earlier, is communication. And really, opening that door and keeping the line of communication going. And that's certainly been my experience, that once you are open to keeping Canada Revenue Agency apprised of the situation, and again, there's everybody's situation is very different, and where it's all about getting the process started, getting the understanding, trying to create some accountability, yes, but at the same time not burying you because, say, you should have done this, you should have done that.
Right.
There's not those conversations. It's really, how do we get you in the right place? How do we get things to where they should be? And people lots of times get overwhelmed because they have this fear that, they owe Revenue Canada and they're going to come and do this, they're going to come and do that. The reality of it is that if you open the line of communication, there's a way that they can accept, your data, your information, and work out a repayment plan. But again, that's all part of the communication. That's all part of keeping the line of communication open and essentially taking ownership of the fact that, yes, I didn't comply, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. But the point of it is that you're going to now do your best to pay X number of dollars a month towards the debt, or whatever it takes to be able to get you into the correct position with CRA.
Right. And we've been talking a lot today about, people that are maybe behind a year or two or need to get caught up. One of the things I wanted to mention is just, in a sense, creating that rhythm of, for some people, and I know from my conversations, they're really looking forward to April, right? January 1 hits and they're like, okay, I know I'm getting a return. I've already spent it, but I know I'm getting it. So, I'm excited to do it. And there's a motivation there, right? So we've been kind of focused a little bit on those people that maybe haven't done it over the last number of years or have an amount owing and they simply don't know what to do with it. And Bron, to your point, first step is let's start communicating. Mm-hmm. Let's start finding a solution to what's going on. And again, sometimes that solution is just simply picking up the phone and starting that conversation. And then the process kind of works its way through. Because
wouldn't it be fabulous? I was just thinking the same thing. Like, there are people I know that have been behind and come to the office and we've done their taxes and then they get this whopping tax return. I remember some of Bron's stories over the years of that happening, and that's always exciting. So, we've been doom and glooming it just a little bit because you might owe some money, but you never know what you're going to get back. And unfortunately, I don't think CRA gives us interest on the money that we're where I don't think they do the same. If
you're owed money by CRA, I'm pretty sure that you don't get it plus interest, right?
No, I don't think so. Anyway, that's very interesting.
So, and again, maybe we'll just wrap up with this. If you are behind CRA, and again, if you're self-employed or, a lot of times what we get in terms of communication from CRA is what they think. If you haven't filed in 3 or 4 years, then CRA is going to go, well, I guess this is what we think you're doing. And so that even the amount owing or you get that may not be correct. And so part of that whole process of just picking up the phone and starting to say, oh, your life changed. And now, CRA doesn't even know anything about it. And that has a significant financial component to it. So, yeah. So,
is there anything you guys, we just have a minute left or so, but is there anything you just want to throw in to mention that would be important takeaway from today?
I actually just want to add something because April 30th does land on a weekend this year. So CRA has extended the filing deadline until May 1st, which is not a bad thing for those.
Don't tell them that, Destiny. For the procrastinators in the group, we're going to go, okay, we get another day.
It's a part of the grace. It's a part of the grace. And I want to remind people, the tax department at More Than Enough and More Than Enough are on a whole, we are a condemnation, guilt, shame, and fear-free zone. We really are a grace environment. So even if it's just a question because you're dealing with somebody else or something uncertainty, or you just really need encouragement because you do feel overwhelmed with whatever your scenario is and you don't know where to make that first step, that call or that email to us is that first step, and you will never get any of what I mentioned of condemnation, fear, and guilt. You will receive an overflow of grace from us. So I want to encourage you. There's no shame in taking your time and knowing that it's been a while. We're here to just journey with you through the process.
Well, and that's a good segue. So you can go to morethanenough.ca and find all of the contact information there. I certainly want to thank the folks at notmine.ca and Financial Discipleship Canada for sponsoring the show. And I want to thank you for being here, and join us next week
when we talk money.
Let's Talk Money is a division of More Than Enough Financial Fitness, where God is transforming hearts and bringing hope for today and freedom for tomorrow. For more information or to comment on today's show, please visit morethanenough.ca.